The stamp that broke her. The banker slams the red stamp. The crack runs through the lobby like a shot. Heads turn. Dust jumps. She does not blink. A widow with papers stacked neat as bones. She holds her breath the way she did at the funeral. Her name sits on the form. The banker smears it with ink and smiles. "Ma'am," he says, "you don't meet the standards." "I meet the truth," she says. "Truth isn't collateral." In the line, a cowboy in a dusted coat watches. The church bell outside rings once and doesn't fade. It hangs. She keeps her thumb on an old letter tied in cord. She will not show it. "We went over this last winter," the banker says. "Income. Proof of value. Cosigner. He's dead," she says. "Then the answer is simple," he says. "No." The room closes. The clock ticks too loud. The bell keeps ringing. "You misread the deed," she says. "The land is clean. The land is tired," he says. "Records show liens when your father ran credit like whiskey. Policy says no chances on curses." He smiles. "Risks." She looks up. "You said curse." "Misspoke." He winks at the teller and at the sheriff's badge in its frame. "Policy." The cowboy shifts. "Depends who's keeping the books," he says. "You waiting for something, friend?" The banker says. "Watching arithmetic." The cowboy says. "This isn't a show," the banker says. "Then stop acting," the cowboy says. The widow steadies. "Run the numbers again." He taps ink. "Do you hear me?" "I hear the bell," she says. He starts to say he doesn't, then swallows. "Even if you qualified, the board would decline. No man in the house. The farm needs supervision. It has me," she says. "That is not a plan," he says. "It kept it alive after my husband's heart stopped," she says. "Until winter," he says. She sets the letter on the counter without letting go. "This belonged to the first owner. It came with the well," the old sheriff said. "Keep it tight and close. He told my husband before the badge went bad." "Folk talk," he says. "We run on facts." "Your facts bend," she says. "Policy does not bend," he says. "You bend it," she says. "Ma'am," he says. "Longer. Reapply when your situation improves." She swallows heat. "Say my name." He mispronounces it the same wrong way. She corrects him. The floor hums. "Names don't change policy," he says. "They tell you who you're breaking," she says. The bell keeps ringing. The cowboy hears it now. "What's the letter say?" he asks. "Not for you," she says. "Not yet," he says. The banker leans. "You brought it to scare me. I brought it to remember. I'm not alone," she says. He laughs. Sharp. "Ghosts aren't cosigners. They keep count," she says. The line mutters. A mother hushes a child. The air smells like coins and old paper. Behind the counter, the safe ticks, slow as a heart. The teller won't meet her eyes. Someone whispers that the well eats names. The banker pretends not to hear and rubs the stamp clean. "If we say yes to you, we say yes to every widow with a story," the banker says. "Then the town drowns." "The town is already drowning," she says. "In what?" he says. "Silence," she says. He stamps on nothing, just to feel the hit. "We're done." Her grief opens like a slow mouth. She sees the shovel, the preacher, her husband's hat on a peg that never held it right after. Under all that, older still, something moves like water under stone. A debt nobody paid. "You'll regret this," the cowboy says. "Are you involved with her?" The banker says. "No," the cowboy says, "but I know debt." "Take your wisdom outside," the banker says. Her fingers loosen on the cord. She almost unties it. She doesn't. "You will count what you buried," she says. "What did we bury?" he says. "Names," she says. "Promises." "File a complaint," he says. "I'll file a reckoning," she says. He stands, trying to tower. He doesn't. She doesn't move. The child stops fussing. "Last chance," he says. Leave before I call the sheriff. She looks at the pale badge in the frame. She looks at the stamp. She looks at the red word on her form. Call your sheriff, she says. He already knows my house. The bell finally stops. The quiet feels wrong. Somewhere in the walls, the note still hides. The cowboy steps out of line. Ma'am, he says, warning. I'm fine, she says. You're not, he says. I wasn't, she says. Now I am. She gathers the papers. She lifts the letter. The banker watches the cord. You can't scare me, he says. I don't need to, she says. I need you to hear yourself. I hear policy, he says. I hear the dead, she says. He sits. Get out. She nods. Done. She backs from the counter, papers pressed to her chest like a shield. She pushes the glass door with her shoulder. The bell over it starts ringing again, bright, as if it never stopped. She steps backward into the light and bumps the cowboy's shoulder. He steadies her without a word. The bell keeps ringing as the street opens, and the town turns its face to watch what happens next. The bell over the bank. Door kept ringing like a wound that would not close. She stumbled on the step and caught herself too late. The cowboy's hand was there, steady, ready to let go. Pride drove her forward. Need pulled back. I don't need help, she said. You don't, he said. I said I don't. I heard you. She saw her face in the glass, ghosted over the red stamp. Then let go, she said. He did. She swayed and held herself upright. Where to? He asked. Anywhere my name isn't an invoice, she said. That's a long drive. Then start the engine. Old men sat on a bench. The sheriff's car idled at the corner. Lights off. Badge bright as an eye. You're making them happy, she said. Who? The ones who like a widow on the sidewalk. I don't care about them, he said. Then why are you here? You walked out like a cut wire, he said. Figured you shouldn't touch ground alone. Ride's not pity, he said. What is it? A road. To where? You pick. Fine, she said. The truck. They passed the bench. The men tracked them with narrow eyes. Credit's a mirror, girl and old man said. Shows you what they think you are. Then it's cracked, she said. Cracked still shows the same face, another said. Only until it learns to break back, she said. You don't owe them a show, the cowboy said. I owe myself a seat, she said. An air that belongs to me. The truck waited under a bleached sign. Paint had peeled. Rope lay in the bed. On the dash sat a torn hat, brim scabbed, crown soft. Coins rattled when the door opened. She knew the sound. Her husband used to tuck a coin under the band for luck. She lifted the hat and poured the coins into her palm. Yours? She asked. Found it at a sale, he said. Hat was cheap. Luck was free. This cut, she said, touching the brim. He had the same after a fence post took a bite. Could be the same hat, he said. It could, she said. Keep one, he said. I don't take charity. It's a toll, he said. For the road you'll ask me to drive. She kept one coin. It was warm. Price paid, she said. Seatbelt, he said. She slid in. Foam pinched through torn vinyl. The sheriff's lights winked once, then dimmed. They like to follow a story, he said. It's not a story, she said. To them, it begins with a bell. My husband hated banks, she said. Said you pay twice for the same breath. He wasn't wrong. He was dead the week he said it, she said. Heart didn't wait for seed. I'm sorry. He died at home, she said. That's what he asked. I gave it. Tires bumped from the curb. What's in the letter? He asked. Memory. Worth anything. More than credit, she said. Less than a loaded safe. You going to read it? When the well says, she said. That a joke? No. You believe in that well. I believe in what it took, she said. And what it paid back. You think the bank believes? They fear it, she said. Fear is belief with a badge. I don't know your name, he said. You don't need it. The woman who won't drown. What am I to you? A man who keeps receipts, she said. For what? For people who think they own other people. Maybe, he said. You from here? She asked. From the road, he said. I stop where the ground listens. The ground is loud where I live. Then that's where we're going. I didn't say you didn't have to, he said. Your shoulders turned when you held that coin. Don't read me, she said. I read the map, he said. You're on it. They passed the church. You going to fight the bank? He asked. I'll fight the math, she said, and the men with the pen. Good. You afraid? I'm tired, he said. Not the same thing. You ever lose someone? She asked. Yes. How many? All the usual, he said. Enough to keep the engine running. That's not nothing. It's fuel. The coin warmed deeper in her palm. She pictured his hat holding the shape of his head on the peg. She thought of the well and the letter, and the banker saying cursed like he didn't mean to. The sheriff's car shrank in the mirror. Why did you really buy that hat? She asked. It looked honest, he said, like it had worked for what it had. He did, she said. He worked until his breath ran out. You kept the place alive, he said. Until winter, she said. Now they say, policy. Policy turns when someone leans, he said. Then someone leaned, she said. They crossed the dry creek. What happens when we get there? He asked. I open windows, she said. Let the walls hear me. Then I walk to the well. And the letter? I ask it to tell the truth out loud. To who? To whoever listens. I will, he said. I know. The truck door shut out the town's breath. Tires rolled toward her family land. Behind them, the sheriff's lights winked once. The coin stayed warm in her hand and would not cool. The truck settled before the house and let its engine die. She stayed in the seat for one slow breath, the coin sweating in her palm as dust lifted and fell. Wind threaded the busted fence wire and made a low human note that matched the ache under her ribs. The cowboy watched the yard without speaking. You ready? He said. No, she said. Good, he said. Honest helps. She stepped down and the heat leaned over her. Dry rows ran to the tree line, each one a mark she could read by touch. The porch leaned. The windows held their breath. She looked at the well like a face she hadn't seen in years, and wasn't sure would know her. She walked to it and set her fingers on the rope. It creaked by itself, and the sound went into her bones. The bucket moved, slow and certain, as if greeting. You hear that? The cowboy asked. I hear it, she said. It hears me. He came closer, but did not touch the stones. You always talk to holes in the ground. Only the ones that answer, she said. She took the letter from her pocket and laid it on the lid. The paper was brittle and tan. The cord tied in a sailor's knot her husband had learned from a neighbor who loved rivers more than men. She kept one hand on the knot and one on the rope, standing between what the town wanted and what the past would allow. Memory rose like heat off tin. She saw her father kneeling here at dusk, with his hat off and his troubled bear. He pressed his lips to the stones like a man trying to talk a storm back into the sky. He set his gun aside so it would not echo. Her mother stood near the porch with flour on her hands, watching him and the field as if both could break. The rope was new then. The bucket shone. He lowered it the way a man lowers hope, and left it there until the moon took hold of the yard. When he pulled it up, his eyes were not the same. He had given something and no one in the house said its name. She blinked the picture away and made the present sharp. She leaned over the circle and spoke to what she could not see. What did you take? The words slid down the stones and came back as a cool brush on her cheeks. Her mother's voice lifted from below, thin but sure. We traded our names for feed. The cowboy stepped back like a thread had snapped under his boot. Who said that? She did, the widow said, keeping her eyes on the dark. Your mother is dead, he said. So is winter, she said. It still rises. He looked at the rope like it was a line thrown out across years. Names for feed, he said. Who took the bargain? Men who count sleep, she said. Men who call a handout mercy and a theft policy. She wrapped the rope around her wrist and fed it down. The crick kept time, old and patient. If you're in there, she said to the dark, say it plain. The bucket knocked the shaft and swung on a rhythm that did not belong to wind. She felt a pull that was not weight. Something's down there, the cowboy said. Not just water. It remembers, she said. It keeps what we give it. What did you give it? Coins once, and words, and a bone from a winter we do not name. He studied her face. How old were you? Old enough to keep a secret, she said. Too young to understand. It's Bill. She let more rope slide. The sound changed. The line eased in her hands as if the well sighed. The bucket met something soft and then something flat. The rope went slack and then tight like a throat swallowing. She froze and the yard froze with her. You feel that? The cowboy asked. Yes, she said. The well made a wet sound, not a splash, more like lips, choosing a word. Her mother's voice rose again, closer. We traded our names for feed. We put the ledger under the rope so it would stay heavy and sink. We kept the roof and lost the name. We took their coin and let them call it mercy. Mercy, the widow said. That word bit. It fed, the voice said. Then it charged. Pull it, the cowboy said. I'm pulling, she said, bracing her feet on packed earth. She drew the rope, hand over hand. The cylinder turned and burned lines across her skin. This is going to be bad, he said. I know, she said. You afraid? He asked. Yes, she said. Good, he said. Fear keeps hands, true. She worked until the bucket showed its rim. Water smeared the wood and made quicksilver lines on the stones. It felt heavier than it should. Who wrote the letter? He asked again, low. A clerk who loved his mother and hated his boss, she said. He made a copy when he saw a clean deed sold twice. He sent it to a man with a spine. The man went quiet. The man died. She set the bucket on the stones and looked in. Water shook around something dark and flat with a red edge gone brown. What is it? The cowboy asked. A piece of their pride, she said. She reached into the cold and lifted an old wax seal that had slipped free of a deed and slept in the dark. A bird and a crown showed through the rot. It matched the plate on the bank door and the weight inside the banker's smile. Her chest tightened. She tried to breathe slow. They pressed this on what they stole, she said. They pressed it on what they promised to return, and didn't. She stood with the seal in her hand, while water slid down her arm like seconds. The cowboy watched the road and the far line of trees, listening for engines that had not yet come. This is enough to start, he said. It is enough to end, she said. Not yet, he said. We still need the letter. She tied the cord tighter around the brittle pages and held them to her chest. You think the bank will admit this? No, he said. Then we make them hear it, she said. The rope waited at her feet like a patient vein. She handed him the seal. He held it like it could burn. She bent to the bucket again and tipped it to show its bottom. Mud veiled the water and cleared. A thin scrap of paper clung to a bead of red. She eased it free and let it rest on her palm. They tied deeds to debt like stones to feet, she said. They sold a note twice and called it weather when someone died. You sure? He asked. I'm past sure, she said. I'm counting. He nodded toward town. When we drive back, they'll see us coming. Good, she said. Let them line the windows. You want to fight? He said. I want a ledger read out loud, she said. Stay with me, she said. I will, he said. She lifted the bucket an inch and listened to the well settle. The quiet hummed, bright and wrong, like a radio finding a station no one else could hear. "Mama," she said, soft, "what else did you bury?" The answer came like breath on her hands. "Shame," it said. "We watered it and watched it grow." She shut her eyes and opened them, not trusting either. The rope left a print across her skin that would take the day to fade. "We're not watering it anymore," she said. She drew the bucket to her knees and peered inside. Water lapped at a small dark disk, riding the slant of the wood. She reached. Wax flaked under her thumb and showed the banker's family crest, old and failing, but still mean. She held it up and watched water fall from it in slow ticks that sounded like seconds on stone. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He did not speak. The yard listened. The fields waited. The quiet kept humming as if it already knew the road they were about to take. The wax crest in the bucket was flaking, but she knew its face. It matched the plate on the bank door, the same bird and crown. A lock turned inside her. She set the crest on the stones. The rope pressed into her palm. Wind moved through broken fence wire and made a low note. Gravel shifted. A car door sighed. The sheriff's car rolled under the oak. He stepped out, hat neat. He looked at the cowboy, then at the letter. "You folks okay out here?" he said. "Depends on your definition," the cowboy said. "Road's rough," the sheriff said. "Town's jumpy. Just checking in. We didn't call," she said. "Sometimes you don't have to," he said. She felt the coin in her pocket and the letter in her fist. The crest stared from the stone. "You knew," she said. "I know weather and roads," he said. "Paper's not my sky." "Then quit wearing the sun," the cowboy said. He touched his badge. Silence stood. She heard her mother in that quiet, a voice that lived in the walls and the mouth of the well. She lifted the letter into the light. "This came from my well," she said. "It carries your bank's mark." "Bank's mark plenty," he said. "Cattle, deeds, flyers. Maybe it fell. Maybe it was thrown," she said. The cowboy sharpened beside her. "What are you planning to do with that?" the sheriff said. "Read it," she said. "Hear what hurt. Old paper lies," he said. "It already said enough," she said. "Like what?" he said. "That a loan was sold twice," she said. "Two ledgers fed on one field. Interest climbed when the roof blew. Then the note came due." The man with the second ledger smiled at the first. "My father walked out here with a gun and bent to these stones. He swore to feed a name to the dark if the land could breathe. He did not walk back the same." He looked at the dry rose. "Stories have miles," he said. "So do scars," she said. The deed moved. The farm bled. "A man died where men don't die by accident." "Careful," he said. "I am done with." "Careful," she said. "What are you accusing?" he said. "I am remembering," she said. The cowboy spoke. "A seal like that does not wander," he said. A hand carried it and locked the door. "You, the new lawyer?" the sheriff asked. "No," the cowboy said. "I count what math forgot." "Let paper stay dead," the sheriff said. "Town is tired of ghosts. The town made them," she said. "It owes them sleep." He stepped toward the stones. "Let me keep that," he said, "for safekeeping." "You keeping things is what started this," she said. "I will write a receipt," he said. "I have enough paper cuts," she said. "Ma'am," he said, "I am trying to help." "You helped when you looked away," she said, "at the bank, at the funeral, when the road washed out, and the graders came after the harvest rotted. I do not run." "Graders?" he said. "You run where you stand," she said. "Stand here." He stayed. "You put faith in a bucket," he said. "I put it in a truth that waited," she said. "The well remembers every lean and ask. Water takes," he said. "So do men," she said. He looked at the crest. "You want to march into town with that?" he said. Stir old hands. I want my name off their ledger. She said there are quiet ways. He said quiet starved us, she said. You think the banker knows that seal, he said. She thinks he does. The cowboy said, does he know what is in the letter? The sheriff said, he will when I read it, she said. Read it here first, the cowboy said. So he doesn't own the first sound. She untied the cord and eased the paper open. It smelled like oil and rain. She'll read low. A ledger was copied. A paid note was sold again, across a line with a false date. Signatures lifted with heat were pressed back down. The field named for the double note would be theirs, if the first man could be moved. The cousin at the bank called it standard. The sheriff that year called it snow. Winter covered tracks. Spring waited to tell. The man who stood in the way slipped. ... She stopped. The last line hammered her teeth. The sheriff's face did not move. The cowboy's hand stayed on his hat. You going to arrest a letter? The cowboy said. I am going to say what I say, the sheriff said. Paper belongs in a file, not a yard. It belongs where it can breathe, she said. He looked at the well. You planning to pull more ghosts? I plan to count, she said, and make them count with me. You walk this into town and make a mess, he said. Good, she said. Be sure, he said. I was sure when the stamp hit, she said. I am louder now. He got back in the car. The engine settled to a hum. The car backed away. Now dust hung. She tightened the cord around the letter until it bit and held. The cowboy looked at the well and then at the road. We go back to town, he said. Tonight. The bank glowed like a quiet church. Through the doors came rehearsed laughter and the tick of music. The cowboy stood with her beneath the eaves. She held the letter tight, the crest warm in her pocket, the well still humming in her head. They went inside. Silverware whispered. Lemon and meat lifted from the air. Donors leaned over plates. The banker, sharper tie, held court with a glass and a grin. The governor's aide stood near, posture smooth. The sheriff kept a plant company. She set the letter on a white cloth. Candlelight touched the brittle paper. When she placed the crest beside it, a thin wine ring circled both like a gate. Heads turned. The music faltered, then continued. The banker saw her and blinked before fitting on his smile. We're closed, he said. Read it, she said. This is a private dinner, he said. Then read it to your friends, she said. The aide leaned in. What is it? Chain of title, she said, and chain of guilt. The cowboy called from the office doorway. You do not belong back there, the banker said. Door welcomed me, the cowboy said. The sheriff approached. Keep it calm, he said. Truth first, she said. The banker touched the paper, as if it might stain. Ancient, he said. Irrelevant. It is the map you used, she said. He broke the cord. Dry fibers cracked. Laughter thinned to listening. He read. A loan sold twice. A deed moved at night. A cousin paid for a stamp. A death on an unsalted road. A wife boiling rags. Interest compounding while men called it weather. A note on lifting a signature with heat. Spring would tell if the bank would not. He stopped. His grin slipped and did not return. Who wrote this? He said. A man you forgot on purpose, she said. This proves nothing, he said. It fits the scars, the cowboy said, lifting a leather book. Ledger agrees. You stole records, the sheriff said. They asked to be seen, the cowboy said. The aide looked at the page without touching it. If entries match, he said, you are exposed. We have dinner, the banker said. Enjoy it. Read the last line, she said. The sheriff read instead. Spring will tell what winter covered. He looked older when he finished. Poetry, the banker said. Coordinates, the cowboy said. Numbers are bones if you can count. Chairs settled. Forks stopped. Faces lost their party shine. She kept her eyes on the banker. "Say my name," she said. He missed. "Again," she said. He missed again. The aide breathed out. "Call your board," he said. "Call counsel. Do not touch a file." "You give no orders here," the banker said. "I am the governor's eyes," the aide said. "Tonight they are open." "Close them," the banker said. "Try," the cowboy said. A server arrived with a napkin and froze. The sheriff rubbed his jaw. "We will take custody of the letter," he said. "We will take statements." "You can hold it," she said. "You cannot bury it." "You will ruin confidence," the banker said. "You will starve." "I already starved," she said. "Now I eat the truth." The banker reached for the crest and stopped. The red circle made his hand look guilty. "You want money?" he said. "I want an honest ledger in my name out of yours," she said. "This is theater," he said. "The lobby is your stage," the cowboy said. He raised the leather book. "Double entries," he said. "Same parcel, same day, 2 notes. A cousin's signature where it does not belong. Interest stacked. The seal pressed twice." "You cannot read our books," the banker said. "I can count," the cowboy said. The aide nodded toward the office hall. "Lock the ledger room," he told the sheriff. "Keep it as it is." "I will keep the peace," the sheriff said. "Keep the pages," she said. Music died. Knives stilled. A laugh fell like a coin and rolled into silence. She felt the well again, the old breath from stone. She stood straighter. "Read the names of the men who sold us twice," she said. "Say them plain." The banker's mouth hardened. "Leave," he said. "No," she said. "Office," the sheriff said. "Now." "Here," she said. "Let everyone hear." Donors studied plates. A woman by the window set her fork down as if it weighed more than meat. The aide's calm held, but duty stiffened his posture. The room leaned toward the table like a jury waiting for a verdict. She could feel her mother listening. "Read," she said. Silence stood. The banker looked from her to the aide to the sheriff and back. "Charm quit." "Read," she said again. He did not move. The cowboy turned toward the ledger room. "If he won't," he said, "the pages will." A candle popped. Wax pooled around the crest like a new halo. The banker's smile died in that small sound. She watched the cowboy slip through the doorway into dim rows where books waited like graves. The dining room held its breath as if the next voice would rise from paper and finally tell the cost. She followed with her eyes, ready to count each page until counting became justice for everyone. The ledger room smelled like old glue and damp cloth. She followed the cowboy into the dim while party noise thinned behind a heavy door. Rows of shelves stood like fences, tight with books that wore dust like skin. He slid a volume free and opened to the middle, where columns ran in straight rails. He set 2 fingers on the paper and felt the slick of old ink. Fingers trace columns. "Old ink slick as oil," he said, not to her, but to the work. She watched numbers gather into the shape of a hand that had been closing for years. He moved slow, reading with his lips, turning pages like a man moving bones. "A pattern," he murmured. Loans denied to widows. Land flipped to the banker's cousins. She saw names she knew. Women she had hugged at funerals. Men who had stood with hats clenched while soil hit wood. Dates stacked like bricks around a hole. Her mother's voice was quiet now, the well far away. Yet what it had said kept its shape in her ribs and would not soften. "Here," he said. "Your parcel." Application marked incomplete, followed by transfer to a trust where the banker's name is bent sideways. She breathed through her teeth and braced a palm on the shelf. "Incomplete means they folded the page before you finished," he said. "They timed it to the harvest. They waited for a storm." She saw the church, the pews, the way donations bought silence. She saw the sheriff's badge in a polite frame and felt how empty a bright circle could be. He turned another page. Her husband's name sat on a line that slid into an accident report, then into a line called event recovery. The widow's husband's accident appears as a timely windfall, he said. Insurance paid the arrears. Then the trust bought the lien at a discount. Her mouth went dry. He was alive when the papers changed hands, she said. The book did not argue. It lay open and waited for someone to keep speaking until the room believed it. He drew out a flip phone, cheap and stubborn, and clicked it open. The screen woke with a dull blue. He fit the lens to the gutter and took a photo, page after page. Light skated across the gloss of numbers and made them look wet again. The cowboy photographs pages with a flip phone. Low-tech, stubborn enough, he said, again to the work. She held the book steady so the lines would not blur. The music in the lobby sank under the hum of the vault fan, and her breath counted steps she could not see. Bootsteps tapped tile. The banker entered with his smile rebuilt and thin as scraped paint. "You're trespassing," he said. "We're auditing," the cowboy said. The governor's aide slid in behind him and kept his voice small. "This can end your line," he whispered, toward the banker. The sheriff stood at the door and measured the distance to the book. She placed her palm over the binding like a promise she had waited years to say out loud. "Set the phone down," the banker said, "and hand me that volume." "No," she said. "This is property," he said. "So is a grave," she said. "You don't steal from it." The aide leaned closer and read margin notes with a careful mouth. "Chain of title shows a mirror," he said. "Dates double back. Cousins on both sides of the table." The banker reddened and tugged his cuffs. "Clerical echoes," he said. "Final decisions rest with the board. Context matters." "Context is a coat you grab when you feel cold," the cowboy said. "It does not change the weather written here." The sheriff cleared his throat. "We can preserve records without theater," he said. "I will take custody and log the pages." "You logged years of dust," she said. "Now you want to log this." He looked down. "My job is order. My job is breath," she said. The cowboy lifted another ledger. The weight bent his wrist. "There is a second set," he said. "Private tallies. Same parcels. But the ink is different. Darker. Fresher." He shot 3 more frames and snapped the phone shut like a lid, then opened it again and kept going. The banker stepped closer. "You think you can hurt me with numbers?" he said. "Numbers are rumors until a judge sings. Numbers are bones if you know how to count them," the cowboy said. "And I know." He turned the book so the banker had to see. The page carried parcels with initials that matched the donors at dinner. A narrow column called Carrie held small marks that added to a large quiet theft. She felt the shape of her house in those marks. Rooms turned to digits. Her kitchen laid flat on a line. "Close the vault," the banker told the sheriff. "Now." The aide raised a hand. "Do not," he said. "You close this, and I call the press at dawn." The banker glared. "You would ruin the fund," he said. "You ruined the ground," she said. He snapped toward her. "You are upset," he said. "You need a chair and a glass of water." "I need a reckoning," she said. "I need you to say his name and the day you timed his fall." "We do not time weather," he said. "We prepare for it." The cowboy tapped the line that held her husband's date. "Coincidence is a blanket you stretch over a body to forget the shape," he said. "This is pattern." The sheriff edged forward. "All right," he said. "Give me the phone. I will secure it with the evidence." "You will lose it by morning," she said. "Not this time," he said. "Trust me." She looked at his eyes and saw the tired man who wanted to be clean, and the job that would not let him. "I trusted you once," she said. "At the road washout. You kept the graders back for the church and not for the field." He flinched. "I was told to move," he said. "By who?" she asked. He kept his mouth still. The aide watched both of them and did not blink. The cowboy raised the phone again and kept taking pictures. each click a small nail in a board. He paused over an entry marked relief and showed it to her. The line said settlement, then listed a name she knew from the bench outside the bank. They turned his mercy into equity, the cowboy said. They wrote thank you on the ledger and took his house anyway. She felt something steady in her chest, like a door holding against wind. Close the vault, the banker told the sheriff. The aide lifted a hand. Do not, he said. Shut this, and I call the press. You would ruin the fund, the banker said. You ruined the ground, she said. The cowboy tapped her husband's date. Coincidence is a blanket. This is pattern. Give me the phone, the sheriff said. No, she said. The banker lunged. The cowboy pivoted, pocketed the phone, and blocked the reach. A red light blinked. A siren held. You triggered alarms, the aide said. The banker said. They broke it. Red washed the walls like fresh paint, while the room held its breath. Sirens shivered the ceiling and made the lobby bright. She held the letter high, the wax crest flaking on her skin. The cowboy braced the ledger doorway and watched the banker. The governor's aide stood by the cloth and kept still. Outside, the town pressed to the glass until breath smeared the night. The sheriff entered with 2 deputies. Hands open, eyes locked. His radio hissed. Everyone breathe, he said. She did not. We've been holding our breath for years, she said. The banker pointed. Arrest them. The sheriff turned slow. For what treating? For theft, the banker said. They stole records. We borrowed truth, the cowboy said. Return it, the banker said. To who? The cowboy asked. The cousins who keep 2 ledgers. She raised the letter so the aide could see the crest. He nodded once. Authentic, he said. Chain of title. The lines match. The banker smiled without heat. You are not an authority. I am the governor's eyes, the aide said. Tonight they are open. The deputies shifted by the plant, trying to look like furniture. The lobby smelled like lemon, meat, and paper that had waited too long. The cowboy planted himself between badge and banker. Whose land is in his pocket, he said, pitching it to donors, clerks, and the faces crowding glass. No one answered. A woman in pearls studied her plate. The banker lifted his hands. This town knows me, he said. This town owes me. Scholarships, coats. We counted those too, she said. They do not cancel a grave. The sheriff moved to the middle and dimmed the room by standing still. We are not trying a case at dinner, he said. We will take statements. We will take silence, the banker said. We will take custody, the sheriff said. Then you will lose it, she said. He swallowed. Not this time. The aide leaned close. Sheriff, if you do not secure those pages, morning will burn you. Let the record breathe. The banker tapped the letter. Old paper tells stories. Numbers tell truth. Numbers told me my husband's death was profit, she said. The room went still. He was alive when the papers changed hands, she said again. Louder for the glass and the boy outside, drawing a fog coin. You are grieving, the banker said. You are using grief to punish success. You call it success, she said. I call it a price on our names. You cannot prove intent, he said. Intent is in the pattern, the cowboy said. Put the book down, the sheriff said. The cowboy didn't. Give me the phone, the sheriff said. It will be evidence. It will be missing by sunup, she said. He flinched. The aide said, seal the room. Keep the pages where counters without favors can count. The banker laughed. You will ruin the only bank for a tale that fell out of a well. It didn't fall, she said. It was thrown. By who? He said. By a man you forgot on purpose. The crowd leaned into the glass until it bowed. The deputy lifted both palms. Back up. No one moved. The music died. Lights hummed. A fork clicked. She set the letter on white cloth so its corners would not curl. Read it, she said. No, the banker said. Read it, she said again. The aide nodded. The sheriff looked at the banker. Stop, the banker said. You are slandering a respected institution. You are defending a haunted one, she said. You are trespassing, he said. You are trespassing on my life, she said. The radio hissed again. The sheriff rubbed his brow. This stays inside, the banker said. We keep it tidy. You lost tidy years ago, the aide said. The town is already inside. The cowboy turned toward the glass. You want tidy, he said. Answer me. Whose land is in his pocket? A murmur rose and broke. A name drifted from outside and came back from inside. Color left the banker's face. Enough, he said. Sheriff, control your lobby. It hasn't been mine in a long time, the sheriff said. He lowered his radio, lifted it, lowered it again, and stared at the door. She felt the well breathe under the floor. She remembered her mother whispering to Stone. We won't whisper anymore, she said. We won't feed you our names to keep a roof. The aide watched her. The deputies looked at the banker, then the crowd, then the sheriff, waiting for a command that meant spine. Move this, the aide said. If truth won't stand here, move the room. No, the banker said. The optics are broken, the aide said. Better to breathe where the town can see. Everyone breathe, the sheriff said again, as if telling his own lungs. He lowered his radio. Static hissed like a snake, deciding whether to strike. Take this outside, he said. The deputies pulled the doors. Air rushed in and bent the flames. Donors rose, chairs scraped, and the town stepped back to make a narrow aisle under the glowing bank sign. She gathered the letter. The cowboy tucked the phone. The aide watched the banker. The sheriff stood between them like a tired bridge. Together they spilled onto the stone steps, where the night held its breath, and the bank's name burned above them like a verdict waiting to be read. At last, scarves lifted one by one and tied to the sheriff's antenna until it bent. Black cloths hung there, steady in night air. She stood on the top step with the letter and the wax crest drying on her skin. The cowboy kept the phone in his pocket. The banker held his jaw like a gate. The governor's aide paced with a phone would not answer. The town pressed to the glass, spilled to the steps. The sheriff came through the doors, hands open. Everyone breathe, he said. We've been holding our breath for years, she said. Old women slipped past and tied mourning scarves to the antenna until it looked like a black roost. A farmer pushed forward, hat crooked, fingers greasy, and lifted his tax bill. The crest at the top matched the seal in her pocket. This came yesterday, he said. 2 stamps. Same parcel. Clerical noise, the banker said. We'll fix it Monday. Your policy took my winter, the farmer said. It was my winter to take, the banker said. I followed policy. She stepped down one stair. Say you did it. He did not look at her. I followed policy, he said. Say you did it, she said again. He kept the line. The cowboy raised his chin. You want a story? He said. It's short. A man buys a field with time. He pays in heat, in frost, in the backs of his hands. Another man writes a number and names the field his. He believes the number more than the time. He builds a house on it. One day the house falls because belief has no bones. The aide pocketed his phone. No answer, he said. Then a legend happens instead, the cowboy said. Someone in back said, we're older than phones, and the steps breathed as one. Arrest them, the banker said. The sheriff turned. For what? For theft, the banker said. They stole records. We borrowed truth, the cowboy said. Return it, the banker said. To who? The cowboy asked. The cousins with 2 ledgers. Laughter flicked and died. She raised the letter so the crest caught the light. He was alive when the papers changed hands, she said. You don't know that, the banker said. The ledger knows, she said. Your ledgers sing. The sheriff touched his radio and let it hang. Inside won't hold this, he said. Outside will, she said. He nodded. We can settle, the banker said. Hardship, consideration, restructure. Grants. You will turn it into a receipt, she said. Pay what you took. Return what you stamped. Name who signed. We'll start a review, he said. No, she said. We'll start a count of what he said. Of the dead and the homes, she said. The farmer raised his bill. Start with mine. The aide moved to the sheriff's shoulder. Seal the records, he said. Keep the pages where counters, without favors, can count. The sheriff looked at his hands. I'll take custody, he said. I'll log the chain. Don't lose it, she said. Not this time, he said. Say you did it, she said again. Say you sold a debt twice and timed it death. Gasps rose and thinned. You'll be sued, the banker said. By who? The cowboy asked. By the field, the farmer said, and a hard laugh crossed the steps and stopped. Leave the scarves, the aide told the sheriff. They hold the record while paper travels. The antenna bowed and still found the sky. The preacher, the barber, and the post clerk stepped from the edge with thin folders. Pages flashed with the same crest. The aide read without touching. Chain of title, he said. Chain of guilt, the cowboy said. You want me ruined, the banker said. We want the ground honest, she said. We want our names back, the farmer said. We want the well quiet, an old woman said. We want to sleep, another voice added. The banker set his smile like a fence. Fine. Arrest me for weather. Jail me for winter. Lock me for arithmetic, the sheriff said. I'll arrest you for theft if the numbers say theft. They sing, she said. They hum, the cowboy said. The aide stepped close. Cooperate, he said. Your line can end or bend. End is fire. Bend is paper. The banker measured the crowd. We will not yield to a mob, he said. We will not be tried on a street. You tried us on one, she said. Every month at the window. The radio hissed and fell quiet. The sheriff looked up at the sign and back at faces he knew. This moves, he said. Let it hear. He pointed to the town. The street is court. She looked at the scarves and felt her mother's voice like a hand on her back. She lifted the letter. Say you did it, she said, quiet and final. He stared past her at the aide and at the name glowing above the door. He chose the same line again. I followed policy, he said. Say it, she said. I followed policy, he said. The cowboy's last line hung in the summer night. We'll take your company, he said. The banker laughed in his face. The crowd did not. The cowboy stepped down the stairs, dialing a number none of them had, and the dial tone walked with him into the dark. Night ran thin while the town dozed around the glowing bank. She did not go home. She sat on the steps with the letter in her lap and watched the cowboy pace the dark with the flip phone at his ear. He spoke soft, flat, patient, like a man who counted breaths instead of minutes. She heard fragments, and the fragments sounded like doors opening far away that did not close. The sheriff leaned on a pillar and tracked the street. The governor's aide waited under the sign and kept calling someone who would not answer. The banker stayed in the doorway with his jaw set and his tie loosened, a king without a chair. She felt the well's low hum under her ribs and held it there like a steady hand. Where is he calling? The sheriff asked. Somewhere older than the bank, she said. The aide listened. It sounds like old money, he said. It knows this town by smell. Money doesn't care about towns, the sheriff said. Some money does, the aide said. It hates sloppy books. She closed her hand on the wax crest and let the flake bite. The voice on the other end stayed low, moving through the cowboy clean and cold. He said little. He agreed less. He let silence starve anything that begged. The banker watched from the doorway he could no longer own. You think paper can whip me? He said. I am paper. The cowboy faced him. You are rope, he said. Someone else holds it. The banker snorted and went back inside to paste tile. The town woke in clumps, one porch at a time, windows filling like wary eyes. Coffee drifted over the steps. A stray bell rang once and quit. The cowboy finished one call, began another, then another. The unseen partner spoke through him, a dry ledger that remembered unpaid dawns. You're not poor, the sheriff said, almost asking. I'm patient, the cowboy said. What's the price? The aide asked. Clean books, the cowboy said. Back wages to the land. Names returned. A chair for her. I don't sit, she said. You will tonight, he said. To sign? The aide's phone finally buzzed and held a tone. He listened, then turned pale. They're moving, he said. Lines are drawn. The board is awake. The cowboy nodded into his own call. Your company is for sale, at market open, he said. You can't move that fast, the banker called from inside. He just did, the aide said. Tender before sunup, the cowboy said into the dark. If he wants to keep the crest, he signs. If not, it moves. Night thinned. Streetlights clicked, tired, and went blind. Linen in the lobby lost its shine. She stood when first blue pressed the marble. Speed is mercy when you've waited a lifetime, she said. 2 trucks slid in without noise, men in plain jackets carrying cases that knew where to go. The sheriff watched and did not interfere. He signed the slip and kept the pen. A printer in a side room woke like a short storm. Stop this, the banker said, facing the sound. You're stealing my name. We're weighing it, the cowboy said, then returning what it took. The aide spoke into a headset and pointed people toward the vault room. Deputies took space at the hall so the crowd could see without spilling in. The town held its breath on the steps and tried to read the future from faces. The cowboy ended his last call and looked at her. Ready? I was born ready, she said, then shook her head. No, I learned. He nodded and went inside. The banker stood at a table with a pen that did not want him. His hand shook when he reached. Your company is for sale at market open, the cowboy said again. Stop saying that, the banker said. Sign, the cowboy said. You can't make me, the banker said. I already did, the cowboy said. You just haven't felt it. Sunrise laid cold light across the seal. The aide opened a folder. Pages rustled like wings trying not to fly. The sheriff stood between door and table and tried to be a hinge that did not break. What happens to the ledgers? He asked. They live, the cowboy said. We match them in daylight. We return what moved wrong. What happens to me? The banker asked. You answer, the cowboy said. Answer what? The widow said. Why, the dead keep his hours. He signed the first page, then the next. Copies slid under his hand like soft traps. He looked at her. This town will starve, he said. It already did, she said. You called that prosperity. The printer spat. The computer chimed. The aide checked boxes and passed documents back for ink. Deputies watched the hallway and tried not to swallow with the beeps. You called capital like thunder, the banker said to the cowboy. Where did you find it? In a room where debt is a language, he said. Who's speaking it? Someone who remembers every loan his father paid twice. The banker wet his lips. You don't belong here. I live where ledgers lie, the cowboy said. That makes me your neighbor. Sun got higher and made the marble look colder. The town shifted on the steps. A boy perched on the rail and whispered the count of signatures like prayer. Her fingers found the coin in her pocket and held it warm. She did not smile. She did not cry. She watched the banker's face learn a new shape and did not look away. What now? The sheriff asked. Now we read the books out loud, she said. We pay back the land. The aide watched a screen fill and blink. It's happening, he said. Hold. Email dings, stacked like pebbles. Signatures bloomed. The crest on the wall looked small against the morning. The banker's pen slowed, as if ink had learned doubt. "It's done," the aide said. Majority changed. The banker lifted his head, slow. "You bought my name," he said. "We bought its cage," the cowboy said. The sheriff's shoulders fell a fraction. Outside, the town exhaled and went quiet, waiting to be told what their breath meant. The banker stared at the table. "You can't own the weather," he said. "We can open the windows," she said. He looked up, because the cowboy had moved. The cowboy stood above him in the doorway to the vault, not as guest, but as owner. Email dings stacked. Signatures bloomed. The company changed hands. The banker looked up to see the cowboy standing not as guest, but owner. Morning settled in the lobby like dust, choosing a floor. She felt it in the coin warm in her palm. The banker stood where his smile used to live, and could not find it. The sheriff waited near the plant, hat in his hands. The aide held a phone so a distant board could hear. The cowboy walked to the table where the letter had lain, and set down a ring of brass keys. They clicked and went still. "Effective immediately. You're done," he said. The banker blinked. "You wouldn't." "I did," the cowboy said. The speaker gave bored voices, votes, and dates. The sheriff rolled his brim because there was nothing else left to hold. The banker reached for the keys. The cowboy set a finger on the ring. "Those open rooms you used to hide paper," he said. "They open for everyone now." "You can't run a bank on pity," the banker said. "We'll run it on daylight," the cowboy said. "You think you want a storm?" the banker said. "You just adopted it." "I live in weather," the cowboy said. "I know how to open a window." She stood with the letter under her palm. The well's echo sat in her throat. She looked at the banker and found the boy who learned to smile at a stamp. "I brought you my name," she said. "You gave me a stamp. Here's mine." She let the coin ring once on the wood. It settled beside the keys, like a witness that had waited long enough. "You'll ruin credit," the banker said. "You'll starve the town." The town was already empty, she said. "You taught it not to say the word." He looked at the sheriff for help. The sheriff shook his head. "Let it be finished," he said, soft. The cowboy faced the doorway where the town crowded the steps. "Here's how this goes," he said. "We audit in daylight. We return what moved wrong. We forgive what was cooked to break families. We ask the land what it needs. We pay it first." An old woman lifted her chin. "And the scarves?" He nodded toward the antenna. "They stay until the count is true." The banker tried to laugh without heat. "Children with matches," he said. "You don't understand ballast or flow." "I understand kitchens without winter wheat," she said. "I understand the day I sold my rings for feed." The aide passed a folder to the sheriff and the cowboy. "New board on speaker," he said. "Sign the custody log and the town notice." The sheriff signed and did not shake. The cowboy signed next, neat like fence wire. A clerk brought water. No one drank. Dust moved in a square of sun and made the room look older than it deserved. The cowboy slid one key from the ring and set it before her. "This opens the ledger room," he said. "You'll read the names when you're ready." "I'm ready," she said. The banker stared at that door like it had started saying his secrets. Bored voices rose and fell. The aide spoke the town's name and a promise. He had switched sides to the truth. The sheriff set his hat on the table and stood bareheaded. For once he had no script. He had breath and a pen and a road he would need to walk. He looked at her and waited for the line they needed. "We start by returning what was taken," she said. "We end by burying nothing." Murmurs moved the room. The cowboy closed the ledger door with the key and set the ring back on the table. He faced the banker and let silence weigh the man. "Effective immediately," he said again. "You're done. You won't find anyone to run this place," the banker said. "No one who knows these walls." "We'll teach them walls," the cowboy said. You taught them locks. She stepped close enough to see herself in his eyes. You turned our names into invoices, she said. We're past due on the truth. He swallowed. A copier hummed and stopped. Outside the town held the glass. The aide lifted the phone. Board accepts the resignations, he read, and appoints interim officers. He named 3 from the steps and 2 clerks from the back. Surprise opened into tired smiles. The sheriff nodded at each. Keys, the cowboy said, pushing the ring into their hands. Brass touched new palms. Something unclenched in the room. The banker looked at his lapel, at the pin he had worn for himself. He touched it with the fingers that had loved the stamp. Keep it, she said. Hang it where only you can hear it talk. He shook his head. No, he said. No more ornaments. He ripped the pin free and held it like it burned. It slipped and fell to the tile. It hit, bounced once, and spun. The sheriff took off his hat without knowing why. The aide's voice blurred into the high sound of metal on stone. The cowboy did not blink. She watched the spin and did not breathe. Ownership settled like dust around that motion. The ring of keys lay quiet. The coin lay quiet. The pin kept turning, lost its shine, and the circle slowed. They followed the wheel into quiet as a dynasty ended with a whisper, and the room learned how to end. The vault breathed like a beast settling after a long run. She stood in the doorway and felt the weight of old paper pull at her wrists. Shelves leaned under ledgers and folders, ribbons and clips, envelopes fat with years. Some stacks felt alive. Some felt like anchors. The air held a dry sweetness, glue and dust and ink that had waited. The cowboy clicked the light and shut the lobby out. The sheriff stood beside the new clerks with a clipboard and a pen that left a strong line. The aide hovered with a small camera and a face that looked like duty without sleep. She walked the first row and let her fingers graze spines until the room answered with a small cold thrill. Lives were stored here in numbers and stamps. Noise from the street arrived as a thrum through the floor. The town was still out there, but the work was in here. The cowboy waited, hat low, eyes on her, and not on the paper. He was giving it back to her. Power handed back was heavier than power stolen. She lifted her chin and took the weight. What do you keep? The cowboy asked. His voice was even. He did not point. He did not pick. He stood back and let the room choose her. She knew what he was doing. She steadied her breath and stepped into the rows. She touched a folder stamped relief and pulled it down. Names ran like a narrow river. Dates clicked. A column called, Carrie admitted a debt that never slept. She set that folder on the keep pile and moved on. She found a box marked Estates and lifted the lid. Inside lay letters from sons on road crews and daughters in cramped apartments sending $10, $20, pleading for time. She kept the letters. She kept the envelopes with their shaking ink. She kept the hope they carried, because hope was a ledger too. A clerk opened a drawer labeled Notices. She read one aloud. Interest adjusted for seasonal pressure. She took the stack and flipped to a page where someone had penciled a name and erased it until the paper shined. She kept that one, proof of a hand that could not live with itself. She kept the pages where mothers had signed with initials because grief made the rest of the letters fall. She kept birth records. She kept deeds that matched a life. She set aside marriage licenses that had never been filed, then drew them back to keep when she saw 2 witnesses in the margins who had died and deserved to stand. What burns? The sheriff asked, soft. His hat rested on his thigh. His hands shook, but they held the form steady. The stamp, she said. She walked to a drawer where those tools slept in rows. Denied, default, demand. She took denied in her palm. The rubber smelled like old rain. She set it on a tray. The cowboy rolled 2 metal bins to the center. A clerk brought sand. Another brought a small torch, the kind used for solder and errands with heat. The aide checked the vents and the extinguishers, and said yes. The sheriff signed a line called Controlled Destruction and underlined it. He read each entry out loud for the room and for the steps beyond the door. Truth was counting in public now, and his voice carried the price. She built the burn pile with care. Lies on one side, anchors on the other. She stacked forms that lacked signatures because the teller never passed the pen. She stacked notices that named weather as cause when it was a cousin. She stacked photographs taken from kitchen tables and kept only the ones that proved A right. She stacked copies of copies where names had been rubbed and pressed again until the ink went sick. She spared adoption papers. She spared promissory notes signed in good faith. She spared the tiny receipts from feed stores that had kept children warm. Say it as you choose it, the cowboy said. Names, she said. Dates, birthrights. She held the torch while a clerk lit the first corner. Smoke rose like handwriting and threaded the air toward the ceiling. The sprinkler almost blinked, then it did not. The room filled with a warm dark ribbon, and she felt her mother at her shoulder the way she had felt her at the well. A woman from the steps came in carrying a small jar. Inside floated a braid cut years ago to pay for seed. The woman set it beside the keep pile and nodded once, as if hair could bear witness. The sheriff logged restitution claims and wiped his eye with the back of his hand. He called each name clear, and when his voice broke, he let it break. He did not hide. A line of farmers waited for his pen. He made notes in the margin when the form did not fit the truth. The aide set up a camera on a tripod and recorded everything with a steady red dot. No one turned away. Pages curled in flame. Ink blistered. She watched the word denied lift and darken and turn to ash that tried to float, then failed. She remembered the bank lobby, the bell, the sound that did not stop until it made the town hear. She remembered her father kneeling at the well and the way his eyes had changed. She remembered her husband's hat and the coin she still held. She felt the low hum under her ribs join the sound of paper ending. A clerk brought out the ledger that had listed her husband's accident as revenue. She did not burn it. She kept it, because some records held confession. She marked it with a red thread and set it on the highest shelf, where sunlight could find it every morning. The cowboy nodded once, as if the book had finally agreed to tell the truth without being asked. Enough, the banker would have said. He was not here to say it. The room had learned new words. Keep, return, make right. She used them like tools. She pulled a box named Winter Relief and found checks that were never mailed. She kept the list and burned the envelopes. She wrote the first 10 names on a clean pad and handed the pad to the sheriff. Start today, she said. He looked at his watch and put the pad in his pocket like a badge he could carry. The burn dropped to coals. She stirred them with a metal rod until the last edge folded. Ash lay like soft dirt. The air tasted clean. She lifted the stamp from the tray and held it high so everyone could see what had hurt them, because it had been easy to hold. This burns, she said. She set denied on the orange and watched it smoke, bubble, and collapse into itself like a lie losing breath. Clerks clapped once and stopped, unsure what celebration looked like in a vault that had been used for harms. She nodded to them and to the sheriff and the aide and the cowboy and to the doorway where the town waited. She turned to the last page, marked denied, and held it over the bin. It curled into coal and stayed glowing like a small heart that knew it was finally done. She walked to an empty safe at the back and opened it with the smallest key. Inside was nothing but a well of dark metal that waited. She took her husband's coin from her palm. It had warmed with her work and now felt like it carried a pulse. She let it go and listened. It rang against the hollow, and the sound traveled out into the lobby, up the stairs, through the glass, along the steps, and into the street. It became a bell calling people home. Dawn found her yard breathing again. The fields still wore their scars, but the light did not flinch. She stood by the old well with the letter in her hand and a fresh cord tight as promise. The hum beneath the stones was calm now, like a slow chest. The cowboy's truck and the sheriff's car rolled in and settled by the porch. People came on foot with thermoses and quiet eyes that wanted proof more than stories. The cowboy stepped out with corrected deeds wrapped in twine. The sheriff carried a ledger and a stamp pad with no stamp, only a blank square that meant yes. The aide had returned to town to teach numbers how to speak. She felt the coin in her pocket and let its heat anchor her. The rope hung still, watching like a good dog. "You ready?" the cowboy said. "I am," she said. "Paper first," the sheriff said. He removed his hat and laid it on the hood. He read her name, her husband's name, the lines of the land, interest reversed, cousins removed. He signed and passed the pen. The nib scratched like a match. When she lifted her head, the crowd breathed in. Women strung a line between two oaks. They took the black scarves from the sheriff's antenna and clipped them to the cord. Sun pushed through and turned grief to shade. Children sat on the porch rail. A farmer held his new deed like a baby he finally got to keep. A teacher brought the school bell and set it on the step, quiet and ready. She walked to the well and untied the old knot. The paper felt less brittle, as if being heard had loosened its shoulders. She tied the fresh cord in a sailor's knot. "This time it goes down and comes back," she said. "My choice." "Good choice," the cowboy said. The sheriff nodded. "We log that," he said. "Log the first good thing I do on purpose," she said. She leaned over the circle and felt damp stone rise. The rope was dry and strong. She lowered the letter while the bucket watched. "To those who come after," she read, voice steady, "keep the count honest." Water shifted down deep. "That's the business," the cowboy said. "And the law," the sheriff added. "I remember you," she said to the land. The crowd murmured, "We remember." She paid out the last span and felt the letter kiss the surface. Cool rose like breath. She drew the line hand over hand. The cord came up wet and clean. The letter rose, shining, and she laughed without crying. The crowd laughed with her, careful not to scare the day. The cowboy set a ring of brass keys on the tailgate. "These belong to the town," he said. "Vaults, offices, boxers. Use them in daylight." The sheriff wrote custody cards and handed them to clerks. "Check in, check out," he said. The teacher rang the bell once. Sound walked the road like a new rule. She read the hard lines again, the doubled loan, the midnight transfer, the road death written as revenue. Each became countable, and, by counting, forgivable. "Names," she said. "Dates, birthrights." "Recorded," the sheriff said. "Returned," the cowboy said. People laid their papers on a board. The board filled and opened like a door. "Say it again," a girl called from the rail. The widow smiled. "To those who come after, keep the count honest." The girl repeated it to the boy. The boy whispered it to the bell. The bell kept still, yet the air seemed to ring. Women folded the scarves into bright aprons. Black became work, not mourning. The sheriff walked the rows and shook hands he had once avoided when orders were loud. "I am sorry," he said to each. He did not use long words. He lifted a sagging gate and set it right. He put his hat back on because there was sun and work enough for everyone. She looked at the house and felt the old fear blink and leave. Her mother's voice moved through her like a steady pull. The well no longer hummed. It stood awake and quiet, the way a good horse stands when a child sleeps on its back. She turned to the cowboy. "You staying?" "I'll come and go," he said. "The town keeps itself now." He glanced at the keys. "You don't need me to guard the door." She raised the wet letter. "We break a curse with counting and courage," she said. "Not with blood." The crowd answered in a single breath that lifted dust and laid it back soft. The sheriff read the last names on his list. She set an empty safe by the porch with its mouth open for trust. She lowered the letter into the well once more. then pulled it back, her choice again. The water was clear enough to show a face, without fear. She smiled at the reflection, because she knew who it was. In town, the banker's office sat open. His stamp melted to a harmless lump of red. Wind touched her cheek, and the line of scarves flashed like signals between living trees. The town breathed like a chest that chose to keep going. The cowboy tipped his hat. The sheriff closed his book. Morning at last felt earned by work.